Well, the first thing I want to say is, can you hear me? Is this the sweet spot of the mic? Okay. Um, First thing was I worked for a Broadway producer. I would have let that go, but there's Google and stuff, and you'd figure out that that wasn't true. So no, I worked for a Broadway producer. Um, what I'm going to read tonight, as soon as I get this thing up a little higher, is a piece from my novel. Um, I'm sure in the years that you're working with girls right now, you probably finish much more of a novel than I ever have in the last 10 years, but I honestly, it's going to be really, really good, I promise. Um, it's the story of a woman called Vita St. James, and she is, in the immortal words of Rihanna, a good girl gone bad. Um, Thanks to some stuff you'll hear about when I finally start reading, she ends up in a situation where she has killed somebody and is now trying to unwind those consequences. So here we go. You want a wake up call? I'll give you a wake up call. It's 2:30 in the morning. I'm coming home from a Match.com date that lacked the passion required to breathe. In my mind, I'm already deep in a box of Pinot and a marathon of cold case. When I get to my building, I notice that the door is open, but I didn't give it a moment of outrage. I trudged up the stairs and hey, my apartment door is open. That's something I do all the time. Leave my door unlocked. But don't you think that a woman who watches at least 6 to 11 hours of crime procedurals a day should be slightly suspicious? That such a person might use an excess of caution maybe before entering? Nope, not me. I walked right in. And sure as Sherlock, there in my living room, in my lounger, was a man in great repose, one leg crossed over the other and drinking my scotch, the good scotch, in one of my good glasses. He didn't even twitch when I screamed. He was reading New Yorker magazine, thumbing through the listings in the front. He would be called by all rational standards of size very big. Not offensive lineman big, but he filled a chair. About 6'3", 260, wearing a double-breasted deep blue suit. Calvin Klein or Hugo Boss, I think. Definitely custom fit, and his shirt was honestly lovely. He had light brown hair, waves of it, cut so carefully that the sheer expertise seemed to render it void of vanity, which, of course, set off the cruel and unwavering focus in his blue eyes. He had hands like a construction worker and feet like a dancer, but somehow the whole look was more intimidating than it was handsome. Let's call him Death. My neighbors are as used to me screaming as they are of sirens or any of the other mundane hearing damage endemic to living in the city, so I did not expect them to rescue me. So I stepped in and shut the door behind me. He put down his magazine, took a sip of his drink, and uncrossed his legs. Again, who walks into this kind of situation and shuts the door? There are no words to describe how shocked I am sometimes at my own appallingly unwise behavior. Have you seen Mamma Mia? Those were his first words to me. No, I said with a little more attitude than a woman in such a situation might be expected to muster. I don't like musicals. It's ABBA, but it's not ABBA singing. It's Broadway singing ABBA, not the same thing at all. He was staring at me in an overtly appraising way as we spoke, the way you might talk to a chicken whose neck you intended to snap but hadn't yet caught. It was astonishingly flattering and unsettling at the same time. I stared at his drink, hoping he was either a hallucination or a Craigslist hookup that I'd forgotten, and not the obvious consequence for killing portrait. Have a seat, Miss James, he said, in a very somber voice, and opened his jacket to reveal a gun in a Steve McQueen-style holster underneath. I am not joking. It was almost, and then the thought was lost. My amygdala started screaming, and I simply froze, fighting the urge to release my bowels. Stall! That was the last thing my cerebrum said before it was cut off by a full-throated panic that felt like I was falling down a set of subway steps. I will, I replied, and I swear to God I sounded like Faye Dunaway. My voice was like velvet. but I'd like a glass of wine first, and I think I'd better go to the bathroom. Can I freshen your drink? Apparently, I was channeling Betty Davis. What kind of wine? He said. Pinot Grigio, Australia, a brand new box. I'll join you, he said. Bring the box. I laughed then, loud, and smiled at him. I smiled at him. It was kind of funny, though, even with the murder vibe in the room. As if I wouldn't bring the box. Can you drink too much before someone kills you? I don't think that's possible. My response seemed to strike him as inappropriate, too. Enough, anyway, that he stopped praising and looked at me. Involuntarily, he smiled, too. Death knew what I'd done. He knew I knew he knew. I guess the only surprise was why I seemed to be an active participant in it, as passive as a lamb. It's still something I don't understand. I can't lie, I was not velvet when I left the room. My hands were shaking. I did something truly terrible in the bathroom. My breathing was extremely shallow, my step slow. I did have a plan, though. I didn't like the plan. The plan had about an absolutely single-digit chance of success. It was a stupid plan, really, based on bull from novels and former adversaries that had had the power to give me a B plus or a speeding ticket. Really, it wasn't even a plan. It was a hypothesis. But here it is. When you are in the face of a death that is not only imminent, but certain to be painful and possibly prolonged, and I suggest you test this hypothesis in a cocktail party, not the way I tested it, there are only two things you can do: run or talk your way out of it. Running was not an option. I had already squandered all of my actual plausible chances for escape, so I had to tell him what happened. So I brought the wine back into the living room, poured 2 glasses, sat kitty corner, lit a cigarette, and started talking. It was a Tuesday, my father's birthday, when he never came back. It was a work event that turned into an all-nighter, that turned into a new life for him. Don't ask me the details. The ones I know are humiliating and torturous, and I don't know anything else. He does not speak to me, ever. He will not take my calls. He's even changed his numbers, and I don't know where he lives. What did you do to him? Death said. Visions of evil, vicious, emasculating behavior danced in his head. Okay, here's what I know. He called me that night and asked me to join him at a work event. I said no. I was hostile about it. Yeah, I hadn't been nice to him lately. I was feeling depressed. I have that problem from time to time. Anyway, he ends up in Atlantic City with some buddies. Did I mention he was married? Yeah. Separated, but still legally married. His wife didn't know about me. He had a son I'd never met. Death stared at me. He seemed slightly dumbfounded at my stupidity. Yeah, no, I reassured him. I see it now, but he had me fooled. I mean, he had everyone I knew fooled. But it wasn't the wife. That was legit. He hated her. No, the ass face was a degenerate gambler. I never even really suspected. He taught me how to play craps, but we wasted money on everything. Anyway, he got down in Atlantic City about a half-year's salary and had no way to dig himself out. He wouldn't dare ask me. I'd already spent every dime I had and more to keep us in the lifestyle I'd grown him accustomed to. So he goes to his brother, who is a complete and overt racist jerk. And the Grand Dragon promises to give him the money if he dumps the black chick. That's me. And he did. Oh, he was white. I probably should have mentioned that. Death shook his head. Trust me, I know. There is not one recrimination you can come up with that I have not heaped upon myself. I was dumped flat, like garbage, by a liar and a racist thief. And he owes me like $13,000. It's like the royal flush of humiliations. And nothing like this had ever happened to me before. The guys I dated were assholes because they slept with you and didn't call after they said they were going to. Every other person I know under the age of 49 acts as if inauthenticity is a crime against humanity. So it never occurred to me that other than someone saying that they were a libertarian when they are clearly not, that you could live a double life. Naive, I know. But I used to like the fact I was naive. I thought it made me eccentric. So needless to say, I did not handle his leaving well. I was, forgive the cliche, wild with pain. It probably doesn't help that I have no real authority figures in my life. My parents are out of the picture. I don't speak to any of my family unless I need an organ. I don't even work. I just spiral and spiral, though I'm fairly sure that this is probably rock bottom. He was surprised. You don't work? I'm writing my master's thesis. But trust me, it is never going to happen. He gave me an ironic look, and we both laughed this time. No, it was never going to happen. I mean, untimely death or no. Why go if you don't intend to finish? I have to do something. Why? He asked. The Pinot had kicked in, so I figured, why the hell not? Because I went to an Ivy League school, and we have great ambition. And if we don't, we're failures, and I don't like to fail. But I don't like to work either. And graduate school is as close to doing something and nothing at the same time as a lazy git is like me is going to get. What do you do for money? Go to the ATM. You're rich? I get by. I get by. Sometimes I temp. Then he laughed and poured us both a refill. So you're a spoiled brat who killed my friend and business partner, by the way, because a guy dumped you. Sorta, yeah. But he did get rapey. He looked uncomfortable, but motioned for me to continue. So, anyway, I was heartbroken. Broken, really. And the only thing that stopped me from doing anything really stupid in the days, now months, that have followed, oh, and by stupid I mean murder, suicide, mass murder, or negligent homicide. I do all the other stupids. Another look from death. That was self-defense. Again, he refilled our glasses. I wanted to kill somebody. I wanted to find my ex and kill him with a rolling pin. I wanted to kill myself with a ragged edge of a wine bottle or walk in front of a bus, but I didn't. The only thing that stopped me, really stopped me, was the shame. I stand here before you, soon to be unchained to my pathetic life, only because I was too ashamed that a man had brought me to such a low point to check out myself. Me, winner of all of life's unimportant but status-enhancing prizes, had been brought to her knees by a man, and a fat man to boot. Death was shocked again. He was fat? Not moo-moo fat, but definitely Santa Claus fat. Uh-huh. And here's the absolute best part. I still love him. I would take him back tomorrow. No questions asked. None. As if he had just gone to the store for milk. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I am going through life ping-ponging through self-loathing and psychosis. And the night I walked into my bar, a bar I had been going to for years, by the way, it's my regular, I was tired, drunk, and high as a Georgia pine on a Heath Ledger assortment of drugs. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, for God's sake, when I met your friend and business partner, by the way. That's a very dangerous hour of the morning, which I'm sure a man in your line of work knows very well. You don't know my line of work. Apparently, I had overstepped my bounds. It's the middle of the night. You broke into my house and waited for me to come home. You know where I live, and you know my proper name. You have a gun, and I'm not under arrest. I don't think you're a CPA. But you don't know my line of work. And you don't know what happened. Uh-oh. I was getting drunk. I was a sloppy drunk. This is what happened. I am a sloppy drunk. And your friend thought he could take advantage of that. He looked at me and saw a victim, an easy lay ground out on the bathroom floor. The funny thing is I probably would have slept with him involuntarily. I probably would have gone home with him that night because that's how little I thought of myself. But instead, he tried to rape me. He punched me in the face, kicked me in the stomach, and smashed my head against a tile wall. He dragged me to the floor and wiped the blood from my nose that he'd gotten on his hand on my dress. He stood on my back and pulled my hair until it came out in his hands. I have bruises from my chest to the soles of my feet for something he was 2 drinks away from getting for free. So I fought back. 1, I read the news. A lot of rape victims end up dead nowadays. 2, he was the first man to really test my resolve to hit rock bottom. And guess what? It turns out I don't want to die. I don't want to end up another sad sack ruined by a man. Any man. I want my life back. And your friend, your business partner, got in my way. I don't know your line of work, and you don't know me either. I won. And guess what? Because you might as well know the truth before you shoot me. I'm glad I killed him. And know this, in the moment before you get your revenge, the why you want revenge for a violent rapist who allowed a drunk girl to get the better of him, I have no idea. But when you do get your revenge, I will die in peace, just knowing it wasn't 'cause a guy dumped me. So killing you would be a favor, he said. That isn't what I said. Men never listen. I said I was glad I killed your friend because it was the first thing I've done in months that wasn't about mourning. And for at least 6 to 10 hours since, I've actually felt like myself and not like Alex Forster from Fatal Attraction. So even if you kill me, it'll still have been worth it. Point taken. Can we finish the wine, though? I whined. I never said I was going to kill you, he said. Are you here to give me an award? You're a little mouthy. I'm also not that easy to kill. Your friend was about as big as you, and I did it with my bare hands. Of course, that's when he brought the gun out. A Glock 17, just like NYPD. Well, I said, that'd do it. But how are you going to silence the shot? He thought about it. I don't have to. It's New York. People are always making loud popping noises. They're overwhelmed by 911 butt calls. You shoot a couple of times, by the time the police figure out where the shot comes, I'm halfway to Manhattan. But this is Park Slope, I said. I'd shave at least 8 minutes off your estimate of the first precinct's response time. A murder here matters. I'll still be long gone, he said. No casings, no fingerprints, no clear motives. You'll be a cold case in 72 hours. Though if you're lucky, maybe they'll get your ex for it. No, I said. I get where you're coming from. This is your line of work. You do this all the time, blah, blah, blah. But as I mentioned before, you'll have less time to clean yourself up, and that'll make it more likely you'll leave a hair or a fingerprint or some gee-gad that'll connect you to the scene. Also, you don't know me. I think you're confusing me with all the other black girls who've gone missing and nobody notices or cares. I'm not one of those. I'm a unicorn, a young black female with a trust fund. I tempt sometimes because I overspend, hate my brother, and won't ask him for money if I run short. He's a complete jerk who thinks I'm a waste of DNA, but he won't tolerate my being murdered. He'll raise holy hell and offer up the rest of my money to solve the crime. Death shrugged, but he was reappraising me again. Ah, yes, sir. And then there's this. I think I mentioned I went to an Ivy League school. I did. I went to Yale. So, assuming you actually kill me with that gun instead of me killing you with it, there are at least 6 Harvard-trained lawyers with daddies that have political juice that will make sure this gets solved because they'll see it as a personal affront. And there are at least 12 more New York Times, Washington Post, Tumblr, New Yorker, and Nat Geo writers who will all write achingly sad first persons about what a loss my death is to the world. In the same 72 hours you think it'll take me to be just another forgotten black girl, I will be a cause célèbre, with a memorial attended by hundreds, including many up-and-coming actors, actresses, and pop stars. So, Mr. Death, you may want to rethink your plan and mourn your friend some other way. You're rich? You're sitting in a $13,000 chair. It has cigarette burns in it. Have you been listening to my story? Well, then I should call the police. It'd be messy, I told him. Assuming you could establish a crime scene, because I'm guessing friend and business partner is no longer in the garbage can behind my regular. You probably left more evidence that you did it than I did. But imagine it does happen and I am arrested. Let me do my own racial profiling. Your friend and business partner has a rap sheet, and seeing what he pulled on me, some sex stuff is probably on it. He never graduated from high school and hangs out with known criminals. There will not be a cry for justice. I can say rape, attempted murder, PTSD, etc., all of which have the virtue of being true. 3, add in my little black orphan Annie story and the fact that I've never had a parking ticket, and then I can afford that lawyer who destroyed the forensic case against OJ and started the Innocence Project. Honey, I'm a single press conference away from princess status. And as they say in the book of Revelations, death was quiet for about 20 minutes. I also said nothing. I'm not stupid. You think I'm pretty smart. You think you're pretty smart, don't you? He said. I'm smart. Yeah. Like genius smart? Believe it or not, as he said it, he was holding the box of wine upside down, trying to rip out the bladder, and drain the last drops into our glasses. Well, I don't believe in IQ, so I don't know, but I'm bad at math, so I don't think so. Are you going to grab my gun and shoot me? Not unless you try to kill me first. I never said I was going to kill you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the Girls Right Now readers. Our first reader is Marcella Grillo.